Okay, let's begin example 3. So here we have the integral of x times sine of xy dA, where r is this rectangle. X goes from 0 to 3, y goes from 0 to 2. So I'll set up 2 ways, but I'm only going to solve this way. One way because one way is much easier than the other. And so I want to encourage you to try to work smarter, not harder, when it comes to some of these problems and try to look for the easier way to solve them. So I'll set it up both ways because sometimes you can't see it until you set it both ways. So I'll do y on the outside over here. Right. Y goes from 0 to 2. X goes from 0 to 3. And then we do x sine of xy. And I'm doing x on the inside, y on the outside. Whereas integral from 0 to 3, integral from 0 to 2, x sine of xy dy dx. Now, if you look over here, then we're going to solve this integral with respect to x, treating y like a constant. Then I've got an x, I've got a sine of xy. That means I would need to do integration by parts. So that's not as that's a little bit more challenging than if I look over here and say, well, integrating this with respect to y is an easier integral. And in fact, if I'm thinking about u substitution, then u equals x, y, and then du with respect to y can equal like x times dy. And so then this integral becomes integral from 0 to 3, integral from stuff to stuff of sine of u du, and the dx stays the same because we're only changing stuff in the inside integral. Well, that makes it a lot easier, doesn't it? So let's integrate that. So the integral becomes negative cosine of u from stuff to stuff dx. Let's change everything back to y's. So integral from 0 to 3, negative cosine of x, y. Y is going from 0 to 2 dx. And so this is integral. So then we're plugging in 0 and 2 for y. So this is the integral of 0 to 3 of negative cosine 2x, then minus minus and negative becomes plus cosine of 0 dx. Okay, now since I'm not doing this, I'm gonna move this up here, and I'm gonna rewrite it. Since cosine of 0 is 1, so I'm integrating 0 to 3 of, let's do the 1 first. 1 minus cosine of 2x dx. Well, in that case, I can integrate again. So integrate that with regard to x. 1 integrate with regard to x is x. And then cosine, integration of cosine 2x is minus 1/2 sine of 2x from 0 to 3. And so that's equal to 3 minus 1/2 times the sine of 6. And then putting in 0 for x is 0, putting in 0 for sine is 0. So it's just, those are just 0. My answer is then 3 minus 1/2 sine of 6. Okay? And so by doing the u substitution, in one way, it was easier than if I had done the integration by parts the other way. So be on the lookout. The lesson here, the moral of the story, is be on the lookout for the easiest way to do these problems.